You are listening to the Body Charge podcast, and I'm your host, Sandy Sanderson. Welcome to the Body Charge podcast. Today's topic is the menopause and low magnesium connection. As hormone levels fluctuate and estrogen levels drop in menopause, there's also a corresponding drop in magnesium reserves, triggering many menopause symptoms, including sensitivity to stress, heart rhythm disturbances, and problems with sleep. Another consequence is metabolic slowdown, which can cause brain fog, excessive weight gain, and thinner, drier skin. My special guest today is Dr. Blake Myers, a licensed naturopathic doctor, Army veteran, assistant professor of integrative and functional nutrition at Saybrook University, and author of The Natural Apothecary, An Introduction to Natural Medicine. He specializes in helping women in midlife navigate perimenopause, menopause, and hormone shifts. So welcome aboard, Blake. Lovely to have you on the Body Charge podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
My first question is about perimenopause. So these are the pre-symptoms before we realize we're in menopause.
Yeah.
What kind of symptoms might women experience that are not picked up, in mainstream medicine that would indicate that they're in perimenopause?
Yeah. Well, it's perimenopause is kind of an insidious process, right? Because it's not like you're here and then tomorrow you're in perimenopause and it's obvious. Because as the ovarian egg reserve is declining, there's a slow decline in hormone production and it can kind of go up and down. And so a lot of times it can start and women don't realize until they reflect back, perhaps, some years later, oh, I think that's actually those were some of the first symptoms that I had. So, anxiety is actually a pretty common one that women will start to realize they were just a little bit, they started having anxiety maybe when they didn't, or they were a little less resilient to stress. And that sort of thing. Definitely, sometimes it can be things like hair changes, hair texture changes, and hairs falling out, that sort of thing. Sometimes it can be uh, just a kind of an internal felt sense that something's not right or something's not the same. I don't quite feel like myself. That sort of thing. And that's really important to listen to anytime you're feeling that way, and trust your body. So those are things that maybe are kind of unexpected. Now, for some women, absolutely, the first thing that they'll notice is that their periods start changing, and that changing in how heavy or light the flow is, or changing in regularity, or missing a period here and they never used to, and that sort of thing. So that absolutely can be one of the first signs that a woman's entering. And hot flashes is one of the most common symptoms, right? So sometimes, as that temperature regulation starts changing, that's a first sign for women too.
What about energy or fatigue, or maybe because that relates to also sex drive, so maybe they're experiencing some difficulty that they didn't have before, in just feeling motivated in sexual relations?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, libido is another area that's common, and that could be one of the earlier things as well. And fatigue, absolutely. Metabolism is changing a lot during this time, so it's individual. I think you can probably tell by what I'm saying. It's like it could be all of these different things, and that's because everyone comes into this world with particular susceptibilities in terms of, like if you get sick, you probably get sick kind of in the same way. Like that one person gets like sinus infections, the other person's like every time it goes to their chest and they get bronchitis easy, and that sort of
Weak
thing. It's
link
the
in the
same.
chain.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the same thing with our resiliency to, for any of us throughout our lives, if we're under a lot of stress, mental, emotionally, and we feel it each in our own individual way. And so it's the same kind of thing during this time of life when women's hormones are starting to change and metabolism's changing, and a lot of other things are changing in their body as well, besides just hormones. That it's kind of like wherever like you said, the weak link is, like whatever area you're susceptible to individually, like that's where that stressor of that change is going to come up.
Yes, it might be you've got a tire forming around the waistline that you didn't have before, and you can't figure out what it is. You're eating the same, you're doing the same things, Why isn't your body responding like it used to? That kind of
Yeah.
feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another very common thing is women's metabolism changes during the menopausal transition, and there's a tendency towards um, less insulin sensitivity, so blood sugar regulation can change a bit. There's a tendency for the immune system to go a little bit more towards the inflammatory side, and these things can contribute to changes in body fat distribution. So there's a tendency to accumulate more visceral fat. So that's fat that is actually like in your abdomen and your viscera or your organs. And that's something that's very important to pay attention to during this time of life because uh, visceral fat, that type of fat is different than fat that you might have, in your thighs or other places in your body.
Yeah, you can
That
just pinch that, you know,
that
take a piece.
but it's also inside, right? It's not like outside the muscle. So that type of fat increases your risk for type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome and cardiovascular risk and things because it's more inflammatory. So that's a really important thing to know about and to figure out for you what's going to work to shift that and what you have to do with your diet or lifestyle, you know?
Yeah, so it's probably a lot better to pick these things up early and make adjustments to diet and lifestyle before you very much more get into menopause. So, what is the transition like uh, ha- the what am I trying to say? What did they when they diagnose you with full menopause, what's happening in the body? How do you know diagnostically, oh, now you're in full menopause?
Oh, yeah. So, uh, menopause is diagnosed after you've gone 12 months without a period, without a menstrual cycle. So, um, if you are in perimenopause, and what will happen is your periods will slowly decrease in frequency as you reach menopause, full, sort of official menopause, and you can go 10 months without a period, and then you can have a period, and you're not in menopause until 12 more months from that. So that's the definitive time medically to say, okay, you're actually done with the reproductive
It's
years.
fully turned
Uh,
off.
yeah, I mean, presuming that there wasn't some other sort of health thing going on, and that's why you didn't have a period. But yeah, so at that point, you would say, yeah, now you're in, and once you hit that point, you're now in what's called postmenopause. So you were in perimenopause. Menopause is like a day, the 12-month mark, and then you're in postmenopause. That doesn't mean that, you all of a sudden feel different or that all of your symptoms go away, but it's important to know that there is th- it's this span of typically years where your body is undergoing a lot of transition and transformation and uh, there is another side to that there
It's a spectrum, isn't it? So we try and attach labels. As you said, there's no really defining line in reality. It's just a spectrum of like gradual color graduations, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So we actually put artificial lines there, don't we? That in a
yeah
whole process, in a big process.
Yeah, it is different though in that, perimenopause early on will have a lot of fluctuation in sex hormones, or can at least, but then there is a slow decline, and to where when you're in menopause, now your ovaries are not producing progesterone and estrogen anymore, and so you still produce some, but it's just much more minimal, and it's from other areas in your
What
body, like your
what's
adrenal
what's
gland.
what happens with the ratio of the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone? How does that mix change in menopause?
Well, women can start to have, they can all go down. Um, the testosterone can be a little bit more influential relative to the estrogen being not there now. And so there can be, that's where some women might start to like have facial hair come up or hair in other places where they didn't before. But testosterone absolutely can go down as well. And that can be a cause for low libido, for example. And so it's very common with hormone replacement therapy, and practitioners looking at, that realm of things to look at testosterone as well as progesterone and estrogen sometimes. And I mean, in menopause, you if someone's in menopause, you know that their estrogen is low, but testosterone could be worth looking at. it's important. Testosterone is important for maintaining bone health, for muscle mass, which is one of the most important things for healthy aging. So, yeah, testosterone is an important one for
Yeah,
sure.
and I think just basically energy itself, isn't it? It gives
Yeah.
us a trigger. It's the spark plug.
Yeah, it's a builder. It's an anabolic, steroid. Anabolic means to build, where catabolic is to break down. So you need testosterone, enough of it to be able to build, like I was saying, bones and muscle, and to keep healthy tissues, turning over.
Yeah, so we don't lose all of the estrogen, do we? The fat cells still keep producing estrogen.
Yeah, your skin, fat, the adrenal glands can produce est testosterone, and then some of that can be turned into estrogen. Um, Yeah, so there's always a little bit still there, but it's just such a different level and experience for the cells of your body that at that point.
And why is a drop in estrogen associated with more inflammation in the body? How does that work?
Estrogen impacts pretty much every cell and every tissue type in the body, including immune cells. And so, essentially, the way the hormones are signaling molecules. They're just they're long distance messengers of and they give different signals depending on the cells that they attach to. And so, in immune cells, um, estrogen will give the signal to have a lower inflammatory response typically. And as that goes down, the signal changes, and so a lot of times there's just a higher level of inflammation because the immune cells themselves are working by putting out their own signals. And so when they don't have the estrogen signal, the signals the immune cells are now putting out is just one of tending towards inflammation more. So that's why, some of the natural and holistically minded approaches that we want to take are things like dietarily, making sure that we're getting enough omega-3 fatty acids and polyphenols in the diet, and having an anti-inflammatory diet, and doing, herbs or whatever else we might need to
Yeah,
keep
an,
inflammation low.
an anti-acidic diet as well, a little bit more alkalizing.
Yeah.
So, so I'm interested to explore this relationship a bit more between the lower estrogen and the increase in inflammation because low magnesium is also associated with a hypersensitivity and a more easy triggering of the immune system with smaller triggers than was the case. So low magnesium leads us to be hypersensitive to stress, to anxiety, and then that involves the immune system, doesn't it? The inflammatory response.
Yeah, and magnesium is really essential for managing oxidative stress. Oxidative stress and inflammation kind of go hand in hand. So yeah, magnesium is really important to kind of keep an antioxidant balance with immune cells.
So you mentioned oxidative stress, which is very interesting because that relates directly to metabolism. So researchers have found the mitochondria in cells slow down their activity if the acidosis gets too high
Hmm.
because they have to calm down the system not to produce more oxidants, more oxidative byproducts from metabolism. So if they can't get rid of the waste products, the oxidation waste products, then
Hmm.
they have to slow down the activity of the cell.
Yeah.
And so an increase in magnesium helps on a functional level the mitochondria work better because it has an antioxidant effect as well. Obviously, we
Hmm.
need a lot of antioxidants working together in diet, and you can expand a little bit more on this because never ever just one thing. However, there is a group of partner antioxidants that do work very well together, that have a synergy to help turn around the metabolism of the cell. Can you expand a little bit more on what you would do with people who have this kind of issue? How do you change their diet and lifestyle to compensate for that oxidative stress?
Yeah. Well, for starters, it always comes down to what in naturopathic medicine we call the foundations of health, or the conditions for health, determinants for health, different things. But what we're putting in our body and how we're moving our body, sleep, stress management, are sort of foundational uh, foundational needs for a balanced immune system and to balance oxidative stress. So from a dietary perspective, I try to keep it pretty simple. That I want people to be plant forward. That doesn't mean that they have. I don't say plant based anymore because people always thought I meant vegetarian, which that's fine, but you don't have to be a vegetarian. But the majority of what's going in your body should be plants. And I try to get people aiming for 5 to 7 to 10 servings of vegetables a day, which is a lot. It's hard to get there every day. But if you have that in your mind, you're going to really push the plants and you're going to have to start eating some protein sources, plant protein sources as well. But the plants are where you're going to get tons of vitamins and minerals, but also phytonutrients that have important antioxidant effects. And then some of the making sure that you're getting enough omega-3 fatty acids is really important as well. So the most well-known source of that is cold water fatty fish, eating a serving a couple times a week. But there's also omega-3s of a different type that are in plants, different plants like chia seeds and flax seeds and walnuts. And those are a little less potent and sort of work differently in your body, but they're still anti-inflammatory. So those are some of the places that I tend to focus. I
Yeah.
try to just keep it simple.
It gets very complex though, doesn't it? Because you have to really know in more depth what plants to eat and what are going to trigger inflammation. So we know that grain foods, processed grain foods, tend to trigger more inflammation because of the high level of carbohydrate density.
Yeah.
And and we also know that oxalates in dark green leafy vegetables bind up magnesium unless they're prepared in the right way to neutralize the oxalates. So there are a lot of things to consider. It's just not any plant food, right? And then you have to get the
Well, yeah,
proportion right.
I didn't say whole foods. So it's
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
I mean, if it's a whole food, you're probably not going to go too wrong. I mean, I don't want people eating a ton of grains necessarily, but I'm definitely not anti-grain, but it should be whole grains. It shouldn't be processed, refined grains or, minimizing processed foods anywhere that you can makes a lot of sense. So I try to tell people to think about diversity with plant intake and variety. And you can think of that in different ways. You can think of it by the colors of the plants. You can think of it by plant part. You can think about, okay, there's roots and there's stems like celery, and then there's leaves, leafy greens. So you can sort of think of it that way and like, okay, am I getting a variety of colors? Am I getting a variety of plant parts? And then sometimes, we could talk about, I like to make sure people are getting enough brassica family vegetables, which is like Brussels sprouts and broccoli and that whole family. They're really healthy for the gut and for liver health and metabolism. And the allium family, like onions and garlic and shallots, those are also really great for your liver and your detox pathways. So there's just kind of different ways that I'll sort of get people to start thinking about eating more plants and also what plants to eat and not getting stuck into a cycle of eating the same things all the time.
Well, it's a natural medicine, isn't it? It's been used for millennia to treat symptoms and to bring people back to their 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 zone of good function, best function.
Hmm.
The thing is, though, it's always about the balance, isn't it? So you mentioned the importance of fats before. So we found that so researchers have found that the fats help insulate us from electrical activity. And when the level of fats in the body is not high enough, or the good fats, then we get electrical system issues. It's just like, electricians find with their cables.
Mm.
Cholesterol is forms the sheath around the nerve cables. So if there are nervous system problems, then something's wrong with how the fat is used in the body. And there are, what are labeled good and bad fats. So a lot of practitioners now are avoiding seed oils because they oxidize so quickly. They are very vulnerable to breaking down, and so shouldn't be cooked with because of the high heat. So there are preferable methods of cooking with more stable fats, such as coconut oil or butter. Do you have anything else to share in that area of, the fat content of the diet?
Yeah, well, definitely fats in moderation are important. some people really go overboard because we've come to recognize in the last maybe 10, maybe 20 years the importance of fats for brain health and nervous system health and hormone health and et cetera. But some people do tend to go overboard on it. You know, it, what you're saying is true about cooking with them. You want to choose a high heat oil, but there's actually really so the seed oil conversation is interesting because um, there's there's some truth that if you want omega 3s and omega 6s to be at a certain ratio in your body to keep inflammation balanced. So omega 6 oils are like seed oil, like canola oil, and any of the sort of vegetable oils they call them, cottonseed oil and all corn oil and all of those. They're now all of those aren't inherently bad, but it's about the ratio, how much of those to how many omega 3s are in your diet. And really, it would be good if you could be anywhere from 1 to 1 ratio to a 4 to 1 omega 6 to omega 3. So you're always going to have a little bit more omega 6 there. But in modern diets, we're talking that people are something like 20 to 1, like 20 omega 6 to 1 omega 3. So that ratio is important. Um,
especially
but
in the
there's,
packaged foods. And then they've got extra
yeah,
chemicals you don't need.
that's the one of the primary places that we get a ton of sodium and these oils that are already like hydrogenated or oxidized already
Yeah.
and not good for us in processed foods.
And the
But
trans fats. Yeah.
canola, and trans fat, of course. Canola oil is one though that there's really, really good research, meta-analyses on canola oil and its cardiovascular benefits. So I don't, I like people to use that, but you want to get like an organic cold pressed one. You want to make sure that it's not
Not
that
superheated to make margarine.
right. Yeah, but canola oil in it of itself is actually pretty healthy according to the research. So that's one that in addition to, of course, olive oil is amazing. Coconut oil and butter in moderation. Yeah,
And that and fatty fish and
of course.
the
Yeah,
fat the fat of the chicken skin in the soup.
yeah, I don't tell people to shy away from fat. I just be mindful of it. And if there's some issues with lipids that are going on, or there's an elevated cardiovascular risk for different reasons, or a family history or genetic thing or anything like that, then maybe, yeah, fat needs to be lower. But for the average person, it's not necessarily
Yeah.
something
There's a
to
lot of
put.
research coming out now about the oxidation of fats in a person that turn the good fats into bad fats. So, trans fats. And that's the activity of sugars in the body. Some people become very sensitive, especially after menopause, more sensitive to sugars. And that is a direct correlation with low magnesium, though. So the lower the magnesium, the higher the sugar sensitivity gets. And the higher the magnesium stored in the cells, the lower the sugar sensitivity. In other words, we become more resilient. So it became very clear to me. So I went through menopause about 17 years ago. So
Mhm.
I have to think back now. How old am I? And it was in the beginning a very bad time for me because I had all of those classical symptoms and felt like any moment my heart would stop in the middle of the arrhythmias. I
Mm.
discovered it was all magnesium deficiency because all the other things I was doing in my lifestyle were good, but stress was getting the better of me, and the stress was causing me to lose excessive magnesium, plus at the same time going through menopause. So it was a perfect storm coming together. And soaking in magnesium chloride salt baths and foot soaks helped my heart recover. I recovered from the stress. I got stronger and stronger because, of course, you need the magnesium you're going to use for that day plus more to put back into the storage cells and start to build up that magnesium bank account then. And
Yeah.
then over months and even a few years, I felt I was getting stronger and better. I actually had a rejuvenating effect from the extra magnesium that's needed. So when we're younger women, we can get away with smaller amounts because the body is more efficient. We've got different hormone levels. Everything is working fully functionally. But as we hit menopause, we need to make some adjustments, a lot of adjustments. But then things get good again. You can really enjoy life and not have
Hmm.
the yucky period anymore and still have plenty of energy and great sleep and, you
Yeah.
know, enjoy the best parts of life.
Yeah, that's a really important message too. Well, there's two important messages that you said. The first one is that magnesium helped you so much, right? I'm always telling people, like, everyone, most doctors included, think that perimenopause, menopause is just all about hormones. I'm like, well, no, there's tons of other stuff going on, and that's a perfect example of you've got all these symptoms and you're like, oh, I'm having these menopause symptoms. But then when you take magnesium, you replete your magnesium and you realize, oh, that was behind a lot of it. So was it menopause symptoms or was it how much of it was magnesium, right? And there's that story with gut health and all kinds of other nutrients, right?
Yes.
So it's important to not just make that assumption. But the other really important thing that you mentioned there at the end is that there's another side to that, to the whole transition. And I try to tell women, like, it's really like, for a lot of women, it's a metamorphosis. It's a true transformation. Um, you'll a lot of times you'll feel like a different person, and that's because you've undergone a true shift. Your brain undergoes a complete reorganization during menopausal transition, and that most scientists now, I would say, would agree that that's like an evolutionary benefit,
Yeah.
the way that the brain changes.
And
So
it's
there's another
important.
side to it. It doesn't last forever that you feel horrible, and you can have some
Yeah.
of the best decades of your life.
That's true. It's just a transition. And it's important to understand how better to support that transition so you come out the other end stronger, better, better frame of mind. Your brain works better. Everything feels better. And this is what I learned. This is what I share with my business, Elektra Magnesium, for the
Hmm.
last 17 years, actually, since menopause. We created a range of transdermal magnesium products, moisturizing creams, lotions, sprays that you can put on and absorb through the skin without going through the digestive system because under stress and anxiety, the digestive system doesn't work very well anyway, let alone, the tablets and powders can't be digested properly and they've got lots of fillers and binders. So it's much more effective to absorb magnesium salt transdermally through the skin and you can never overdose that way. So it's just very comforting. You can use as much as you like. And it was the most helpful thing in my transition. And also, many other women are finding the same thing. It just helps them feel more normal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Um,
so there's a lot to menopause and you're getting down to the nitty gritty. So, if women want to find out more about what you do and your own protocol, where should they go?
Yeah, so I have a book that's on Amazon called a different one than what you mentioned. It's called Rock Menopause Naturally, and it's with the bridge system. And the bridge system is just a protocol that I made that's bridging the gap from premenopause to postmenopause. And it gives you kind of three phases of resetting your diet, sleep, stress management. It gives you some supplement recommendation for herbs and other nutrients that are supportive. And it takes you through a few phases to just really kind of get your diet and lifestyle pieces in place and to start to reflect. There's some reflection pieces in there as well of reflecting on your health and what you already know that you can do to help yourself feel better. We all kind of know, if I did this today, what would improve my health and I would start feeling better. And so there's some of that in there as well to help women kind of connect with their inner knowing.
That's true. It's body, mind, soul comes together. We need to pay attention to mental health, physical health. It's all wrapped up in one bundle, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, so that book is on Amazon. And then if you want to, at thebridgesystemmethod.com, you can get more information. And I have a supplement that's coming out in the next couple of weeks that's like an herbal, it's something I developed over the last 10 plus years in clinical practice. It's an herbal approach to help with the majority of menopause symptoms.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Bye
Yeah,
bye.
thank you.
I hope you liked this conversation and will share it with others. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you want to listen to other Body Charge conversations, click like, subscribe, the bell icon, and click all notifications. Subscribe to our newsletter to get updates on blogs, podcasts, videos, and magnesium special offers at electromagnesium.com.au. Relax, recharge, and recover.